Picture this: tens of billions of dollars worth of digital currency, locked away in digital vaults, their destinies dictated not just by hard-coded algorithms, but by shifting boardroom strategies, evolving market realities, and, at times, secretive side agreements. Imagine a scenario where the fate of one of the most talked-about tokens in the entire crypto ecosystem doesn't just depend on lines of computer code, but on decisions made behind closed doors. Decisions that could affect millions of investors worldwide. Welcome to the high-stakes, little-understood world of Ripple's XRP Escrow, a silent yet powerful force reshaping the very future of global finance. To truly understand the controversy and intrigue swirling around Ripple and its vast XRP reserves, let's rewind the clock and set the stage. Back in the year 2017, the cryptocurrency world was in the throes of a wild bull run. Bitcoin was making headlines, Ethereum was gaining traction, and the markets were full of promises and panic. Ripple, whose XRP token was drawing increasing attention from both retail investors and institutional players, faced a growing crisis of confidence. The core issue? Uncertainty over token supply. Investors worried that sudden, massive releases of XRP by Ripple could cause wild price swings, undermining trust in the token and shaking the entire market. In response, Ripple made a move that, at the time, was hailed as both radical and reassuring. The company announced it would lock away 55 billion XRP, nearly half of the total supply, across 55 unique escrow contracts on the XRP ledger. The idea was simple in theory, but complex in execution. Each month, exactly 1 billion XRP would be released from escrow. Any unused portion would be seamlessly returned to new escrows, creating a rolling schedule that promised predictability and stability. This mechanism was supposed to guarantee transparency, governed by immutable, automated ledger rules. It was designed to be free from human meddling, at least on paper. But as we fast forward to today, the numbers and the context have only grown more astonishing. Over 36 billion XRP tokens remain locked in escrow, representing a combined value well into the tens of billions of dollars. Each month, an army of crypto analysts and enthusiasts pour over the blockchain, tracking every release and relock with forensic precision. Third-party tools like Whale Alert have become household names among crypto watchers, instantly reporting every major move, such as July's massive 400 million XRP relock, or the two-paired 500 million XRP unlocks in the same month. These are not trivial numbers. They can move markets and sway sentiment in a heartbeat. On the surface, Ripple's system appears to be a model of clarity. The public ledger records every scheduled release, every relock token. Anyone can see when tokens are moved, how many are released, and when they are returned to escrow. But beneath this veneer of transparency, deeper doubts persist. Legal analysts and regulatory experts have repeatedly pointed out that while the blockchain provides a transparent record of what happens on-chain, it sheds almost no light on Ripple's motivations, off-ledger agreements, or internal decision-making processes. The true levers of control may lie outside the public's view. This tension between what is visible and what remains hidden has only intensified as Ripple has pursued even more ambitious goals. The company is actively seeking a national bank charter in the United States, a move that, if successful, would open doors to the Federal Reserve and position Ripple as a bridge between traditional finance and the brave new world of blockchain. At the same time, Ripple is eyeing the tokenization of trillions of dollars in real-world assets, from real estate to commodities, as the next frontier for blockchain adoption. The scale of these ambitions is colossal, and the strategic use of XRP escrowed funds could be critical in making them a reality. This is where speculation and concern begin to swirl. Could Ripple be quietly reshaping its escrowed XRP reserves to bankroll new business ventures, launch its own stablecoin, or fuel partnerships with major banks and institutional investors? Could off-ledger agreements allow Ripple to deploy XRP in ways that are not immediately visible to the public, potentially impacting the market's perception of supply and demand? It all boils down to a fundamental question of trust and control. Analyst Justin Bonds, a prominent voice in the crypto community, recently issued a stark warning. XRP's centralization is a serious risk. Only full transparency will build long-term value. His concerns are echoed by many who fear that, despite the promise of algorithmic releases, the real power to influence XRP's fate may reside in backroom negotiations and opaque side deals. Yet Ripple maintains that its monthly releases are governed by immutable code, hardwired into the XRP ledger. Some experts, such as Vincent Van Code, have argued that this structure actually supports responsible, real-world adoption, allowing Ripple to respond to evolving market conditions without causing chaos. But then came July, a month that sent shockwaves through the community. For years, Ripple had followed the same pattern. After releasing a total of 1 billion XRP in monthly unlocks, it would routinely relock 800 million XRP, effectively returning the majority of the tokens to escrow. But this time, something different happened. Instead of relocking 800 million XRP, Ripple relocked only 700 million. This deviation, though seemingly minor compared to the overall supply, set off alarm bells among analysts. Was this a technical hiccup, a one-time blip, or a deliberate signal of a more flexible, market-responsive strategy? CoinDesk analysts believe this new flexibility could indicate Ripple's willingness to adapt to market demand, potentially unlocking value for institutional partners or new projects. But it also raises uncomfortable questions. If Ripple can change its release and relock patterns, what is to stop it from making larger, more consequential moves, possibly behind closed doors? What if the next change isn't a 100 million XRP difference, but something far larger? And here's the most unsettling part. The broader market may never know until after the fact. Off-ledger agreements, confidential institutional deals, and ongoing regulatory negotiations could all determine how much XRP ultimately hits the open market, and when. As one Bloomberg analyst put it bluntly, ambiguity breeds uncertainty. Until Ripple lifts the veil, institutional adoption will always lag. So just how much control does Ripple truly wield over its locked billions? The answer is both simple and deeply complex. On the ledger, the rules are clear. But beyond the ledger, the lines blur. And if the distinction between transparency and strategic maneuvering becomes even more opaque, what risks and what opportunities might lie ahead for XRP holders, investors, and the broader market? Let's take a step back and consider the broader context. Ripple's escrow system was initially hailed as a model of responsible supply management, an antidote to the wild, unpredictable token dumps that plagued other projects. But the sheer size of Ripple's holdings makes any change in escrow behavior a matter of global economic significance. With over 36 billion XRP still locked up, nearly 40% of the total supply, even relatively small deviations from the established pattern can cause ripple effects, pun intended, throughout the market. Recent data from Whale Alert and XRPSCAN have provided a granular look at these movements. For example, on the 1st of July in the year 2025, Ripple unlocked 500 million XRP, and 3 days later, another 500 million XRP was released. Following these unlocks, only 700 million XRP was relocked down from the usual 800 million. At the time, 400 million XRP, valued at nearly $1 billion, was locked again, highlighting the kind of capital at play. But the numbers alone don't tell the full story. What matters is not just how much XRP is being released or relocked, but what happens to the tokens that are not returned to escrow. Are they being sold on secondary markets, used to fund new projects, held in reserve for strategic partnerships, or regulatory compliance? Legal experts worry that the lack of full transparency could expose Ripple to new rounds of regulatory scrutiny. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's long-running lawsuit against Ripple, which resulted in a settlement of $50 million, is a stark reminder of how legal actions can cloud market sentiment and disrupt operations. One Forbes legal analyst has warned that if Ripple's off-ledger deals circumvent established securities laws, a new wave of regulatory firepower could be unleashed. In the worst-case scenario, Ripple's ambitions to secure a national bank charter or partner directly with the Federal Reserve could be put on ice, cutting the company off from crucial financial infrastructure. But there's an alternative path, one that could transform Ripple's current predicament into an industry-defining opportunity. If Ripple were to embrace radical transparency, fully disclosing every off-chain agreement and clarifying the true extent of its control over escrowed XRP, it could restore trust among institutional investors and regulators alike. This move would not only set a new standard for industry best practices, but could position Ripple as a leader in compliance and institutional adoption. As Bloomberg's crypto analyst succinctly put it, ambiguity deters capital. Clarity invites it. At the same time, Ripple's more flexible approach to escrow management could unlock significant strategic opportunities. By adjusting the amount of XRP relocked each month, Ripple could deploy tokens more nimbly in support of new liquidity pools, stablecoin launches, or as collateral for real-world asset tokenization. The global demand for tokenized assets is expected to skyrocket by the year 2033, and Ripple's ability to supply liquidity could make XRP a key player in this emerging market. However, if these moves are perceived as manipulative or overly opaque, the utility of XRP could be overshadowed by doubts and fears about supply manipulation. Expert voices are divided on the best path forward. Justin Bonds has been especially vocal in his criticism, arguing that only true decentralization and unfettered transparency can safeguard the future of XRP. He warns that centralization risks not only alienate the crypto community, but could also undermine institutional trust. On the other hand, supporters like Vincent Van Code argue that Ripple's monthly releases are part of a carefully structured, utility-focused approach designed to support tangible, real-world adoption of blockchain technology. In his view, adaptability is not a weakness but a strength, enabling Ripple to support everything from cross-border payments to the burgeoning world of decentralized finance. The debate is far from academic. For example, Ripple's recent launch of an Ethereum virtual machine-compatible sidechain on the XRP ledger, which went live at the end of June in the year 2025, is a strategic move aimed at attracting developers and institutional investors. By enabling smart contracts and enhancing interoperability, Ripple is positioning itself at the cutting edge of the DeFi revolution. Yet the ability to supply and manage liquidity through controlled XRP releases is a double-edged sword. It can foster innovation, but also invite suspicions of supply manipulation. Let's now explore potential scenarios for the future. Imagine a regulatory crackdown, triggered by growing concerns over off-ledger agreements and opaque supply management. If Ripple cannot meet new demands for transparency, further legal challenges, hefty fines, or even operational restrictions could follow. Such outcomes could erode investor confidence, drive down the price of XRP, and hinder Ripple's partnerships with banks and financial institutions around the globe. The company's expanding stablecoin initiatives, such as RLUSD, could be delayed or derailed, and its role in the emerging landscape of real-world asset tokenization could be diminished. Conversely, if Ripple chooses to set a new transparency benchmark, detailing every off-chain deal, publicizing all compliance agreements, and inviting independent audits, they could flip the narratives. Institutional capital, currently sitting on the sidelines due to uncertainty, might flow into XRP and related projects. This could fuel a new wave of adoption, accelerate cross-border payment solutions, and establish Ripple as a linchpin in the convergence of traditional finance and blockchain. Meanwhile, practical opportunities abound. Ripple's evolving approach to escrow management signals a willingness to innovate. By retaining more tokens outside of escrow, Ripple could create new liquidity pools for institutional DeFi, provide collateral for asset-backed tokenization, or support the launch of stablecoins and new financial products. If executed transparently and responsibly, these moves could supercharge XRP's utility and market relevance, especially as tokenized asset markets are projected to multiply in the next decade. However, the risk of supply overhang, where too many tokens chase too few opportunities, remains a real concern. So what's the practical takeaway for you, the investor, the analyst, or the curious tech follower eager to understand where this story is headed? First, keep a close eye on changes in Ripple's escrow patterns. Any deviation from the established monthly unlocks, especially sudden or unexplained ones, could be an early warning sign of deeper strategic shifts or the start of significant institutional deals. Services like Whale Alert and XRPSCAN can help you track these moves in real time, offering a level of transparency that is rare in the world of global finance. Second, don't just look at the numbers on-chain. Pay attention to legal filings, compliance statements, and the public pronouncements of Ripple's leadership team. When transparency is multi-layered, real control is often hidden in the details of legal agreements and off-chain contracts. As Justin Bonds famously said, in crypto, supply is trust, and trust is everything. Third, consider the broader context. Ripple is not just fighting for its own survival. With its pursuit of a national bank charter, its expanding stablecoin initiatives, the launch of the Ethereum-compatible sidechain, and its ambitions in tokenizing real-world assets, Ripple's success or failure could set the tone for how traditional finance and blockchain technology finally converge. The R3 lawsuit settlement, valued at over $240 million, is a potent reminder of the complex legal and financial history that underpins Ripple's journey. Every move the company makes is watched by regulators, tech innovators, and global investors alike. Fourth, remember that the timeline matters. XRP Wallets estimates that the remaining 36.4 billion XRP in escrow could be fully released within 6 years. depending on Ripple's distribution strategy. That's a long runway, but not an infinite one. Market dynamics, regulatory pressures, and evolving business models could all accelerate or decelerate this timeline, with implications for price stability and long-term adoption. Finally, stay attuned to the human element. Behind every ledger entry and legal contract are the motivations, fears, and ambitions of real people. Executives making strategic bets, regulators weighing risks, and investors seeking both safety and opportunity. As history has shown in both traditional finance and the crypto world, the difference between success and scandal often comes down to how well these human factors are managed. In conclusion, the central question at the heart of this story is deceptively simple. Could Ripple's hidden strategies and evolving approach to escrow management reshape not just the future of XRP, but the entire landscape of global crypto markets? The answer is layered and complex. On the one hand, off-ledger maneuvers might provide the flexibility needed to support massive new use cases, from cross-border payments to the tokenization of real-world assets. On the other hand, unless Ripple balances innovation with radical transparency, it risks eroding the very trust that XRP was designed to build. If you want to stay ahead in crypto, remember to look beneath the headlines. Follow the data, question every announcement, and never underestimate how much the unseen can move the markets. For deeper dives into global fintech shifts, legal battles, and the next chapter in blockchain innovation, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit